And fun fact, I noticed there's a typo on the board outside. It said it was a Scrappy UXer's tale of effective low-tech, low-petty. So it's not petty at all. This is going to be the least petty presentation you've ever seen. So with that, yeah, I'll kind of quickly talk about what I'm going to talk about, and then I'll tell you a little bit about me, kind of define what my pain points were and sort of why I started doing this low-tech, essentially low effort, but kind of low prep turnaround UX research, sort of as I got into the process of designing this type of research model, what my solution was to having some of these pain points. And then I'll kind of show a little demo of what that style of research looked like in process. And then we'll take a look and kind of like evaluate it and understand like when does this type of research work well? When is it maybe not so good of a fit? So for me, I won't read all this. I trust that if you're here, you've probably read screens before. But yeah, so I'm a senior interaction designer at Red Hat. So sort of just a little bit about me as a UX person. I double majored in math and graphic design when I was an undergrad. And then during, the height of the pandemic, I was seeing what schools were dealing with and teachers trying to turn flip their whole classrooms upside down and put them fully online. And I just as a UX person and someone who's always kind of looked into education as being the most important thing for people's futures. That's my perspective. I was like, maybe one day I could do something about this. Me caring about the experience of people, I care about the experience of learning too. So one day maybe I'll see myself in more of that ed tech space. We'll see. So I went on to get my master's in education. And then as far as my career's gone, I've been at Red Hat for almost 9.5 years. So I started as an intern where I did kind of more events, more graphic design stuff. So I would design badges like this for other Red Hat conferences and t-shirts and all this fun stuff. Then when I came on full-time back in 2018, I worked as a visual designer. So a little bit less on the research and user flow side of things, a little bit more on the the UI, how do these things look on OpenShift. Took a brief stint over on developers.redhat.com where I did web design and was kind of temporarily design lead. And then now I'm senior interaction designer on the hybrid cloud console. So kind of almost like a merging of two worlds, working on a SaaS platform. I can kind of see, that web side of things and that I don't have to be a technical expert in just one thing like I was on OpenShift, but I could be a little bit more of a appreciator of all the little cogs in the system. And my UX sweet spot, that's something I always like to ask people, is UX is so umbrella, right? We got the research, the design, your mom, your dad, your cat, all these different things that just make up one field. And my sweet spot is kind of wayfinding and navigation. So that's kind of related to what I'm going to be talking about. And something else that's kind of worth noting is, because we're going to be here for the next 30-ish minutes, so I'll tell you a little bit about me too. So my work side hustle, as I call it, is that I work with the local K-12 public schools in Boston to try to get kids into the office or go to their schools and expose them to different things different opportunities that could exist in a place in the STEM industry. Hobbies, I like crafting, cooking, and trying new restaurants. If it involves food, I will be there and I will be happy about it. And then lastly, it wouldn't be appropriate if I didn't include my pride and joy, Lily, commonly known as Chubbs. Because I could talk all day about her and her beauty, I'll just keep going. All right, so kind of getting into the meat of this, I wanted to kind of talk about why do I have to get scrappy as a UXer when I'm doing my research? So I kind of looked at it through a few different lenses. So everyone, the world is kind of good UX requires research. We have to be data backed. And I'm yeah, let's do it. Sounds good. Let's do some research. But in my brain, I'm but my product doesn't have a dedicated UX researcher. And I have other things on my plate. But on the outside, I'm yeah, let's do it. Let's do the research. So that pain point is I don't have the cycles to do a lot of prep work in order to carry out this research. So that's one scenario of my pain point journey. Another is when the world just broadly tells me, essentially, this service sucks. And I'm like, yeah, sure, let's hear about it. Why does it suck? And but then in my brain, I'm like, okay, because of those other priorities, and because someone's giving me this general statement of something sucks, I need to kind of get a little bit of a green light to be able to dig a little bit deeper and potentially put a little bit of time in beyond just research this one specific thing. So that's the lots of problems to solve, and I need to fundamentally understand the user's mindset in order to actually solve the problem. So my proposal about kind of how I could solve these pain points for myself when I don't have much time, up here, I didn't say it, but, budget and recruiting are always like, how do you find the people and how do you give them money for making them answer your questions? Those are always issues too, but those are not the ones I'm going to focus on. But those were at the underlying things as well. So I had like no budget, no time, no idea what to research, but new research had to happen. So here we came with ask people about words. They know words, they have feelings about words. I'm not going to show them any pretty pictures, nothing that will distract them from the words. I'm not going to show them any user flows or give them anything particularly scenic to look at. I just want to know what your perception are of words. So I kind of loosely started referring to this as terminology mental model, because I wanted to know, when you see these words, what does your brain do? Like, what fires in your brain? What do you think of? And what connections do you start to make to other words? So I'll kind of show you a little bit more about like what this method looks like, and then we'll look at some examples of what it looked like in practice as well. So basically, why I kicked off this study, a service that I was working on that ended up being like a really large chunk of my time was kind of kicked off from a very product-driven, not, some businessy person telling me like the market needs this, but we saw a very like from the ground up issue starting to form. Like we were seeing our usage from customers of this one particular service. It was kind of like an alert manager service. It was becoming really stagnant. People started using it less or not using it at all. And then there was, even internally, the people that work on it, myself included, confusion around what it did and why the terms that we used to describe this alert service didn't feel like it did what we expected it to do. And then we also even had, RFEs or requests for enhancements come through from external customers kind of being like, I want this feature. And I'm like, we have that. Like, why aren't you just using the one that we have? And the response was, I didn't know you had it, or you're not calling it something that I recognize as being what I want. So kind of what we dug into and what I did sort of a little bit before I did this terminology study was we had evidence of a bad UX, but we didn't know why it was bad. So we had to do a little bit of like discovery research. So I started with a competitive analysis. So I looked at some competitor products to see what their sort of alerting and like alert end user settings, and then also like if you're an admin, how do you configure alerts for people? I looked at what they were doing, spent a really long time kind of analyzing what we do that they don't and what they do that we don't, to kind of find like some gaps, and just make sure that I really understood the space. Like maybe there was things that other competitors were doing that we should do that I just hadn't even thought of before. So then this talk to users piece, this is where the terminology study came into play. So basically I wanted to kind of examine and ask some questions about our existing experience and or the existing experience plus some possible other ways that I'm seeing competitors do it, and just get an understanding of what actually fits their user perspective better. So my goals for the research, the competitive analysis helped me understand, all right, what are kind of like the key little bits that have to do with like an alert managing service? And then now it's time to dig in and figure out, now I know what the bits are, what should we call them? What should the details of those bits be? So my goals were to find differences in the structures, the terminology, the patterns, and more across our services and our competitors. I wanted to extrapolate those differences into high-level themes, and then I wanted to focus on the differences in terminology mostly. So I'll get into that in a second. So that was the competitive analysis side. The goals of the talking to users part, or this terminology study, was to understand if the terminology we are currently using meets the mental model or the expectation. Like, if are what we're doing now meeting that, or is there something else that would better meet that? So in a low-tech, low-visuals environment, I want to kind of prompt high-level questions that would sort of invite the users to just have a little spark, but then I'm going to let them just roll with it and tell me what they think. Because some of these things might not be known to me or our product managers or others in the space, so I wanted to learn more. So this second part is specifically that terminology mental model piece. The competitive analysis was just prep work for that. So the process, again, the preparation was doing the competitive analysis, creating a slide deck to do the actual facilitate the terminology study, create a note-taking sheet. So that's what some of these artifacts looked like. I'm happy to send the templates for any of these if anyone is interested. Actually, I think I posted them in the abstract for this session. So the colorful boxes, that was the competitive analysis I did, and then the other two are essentially the very bare bones, just words slide template, and the other one is the note-taking sheet. So whether it was me taking notes on the user study, or if I had a coworker taking notes while I was conducting it, or if I had to record the session and then take notes later, it just kind of gave me a very formulaic way to make sure I was capturing the information that I needed. So then the execution step was doing the studies. So for me, that looked like I did 2 one-on-one sessions where I got essentially on a call with a customer or 2 customers, one-to-one, recorded those for about 30 minutes, and then we also did a more focus group study style, where I think we had about 9 people from an existing group that met to discuss their usage of one of our products. And I essentially put this deck in front of them and let them just rapid fire, come at me with the words, and then took notes, whether that was me or someone else. And then lastly, there was an analysis phase where I took the responses that I got from the questions that in the prompts that I gave around terminology and kind of synthesized those into high-level themes rather than just anecdotal little nuggets of information. I used some AI tools like Gemini to summarize the outcomes from each session. That way I could have sort of a brief little chunk that could be hey, here's the most important things that came out of that one session. And then I summarized all of it into the most actionable design decisions. So what I wanted to do, and there it is, okay, was actually show kind of the study in a few snippets from the study itself. So, excuse me. This is a chunk. The customer in conversation has given me permission to share this, but the name and the company and face has been removed for security. Hopefully audio works? Question mark? Hopefully the video works. Okay, I'm not hearing audio. 1 second. Let me try. Let's try this again. So this next, so it's coming from my laptop, but can you guys sort of hear that okay? It's probably going to be really muffled, and you'll just have to accept that it's a free conference, so that's what we get. Okay. Okay. So this next one is, as I've been looking at what a lot of different cloud providers' experiences look like, I've noticed these 3 terms, event, rule, and policy, that in a lot of cases seem closely coupled. So I'm curious what they are to you. Are any of these synonymous? So this was the deck that I showed, and the user had to tell me their perspective of these terms.
So event is usually, like I said, that kind of something happens, which it could be a critical thing, could be more of an informational thing, but it's just generically something of note happens, and you need to, like, figure out what to do with that sort of stuff. So once you get the event and you now need to figure out what to do with it, that's when you start to get into the rule and policy um, type of stuff. And it is a little bit like kind of context dependent. Like the event's a very like well-defined thing, whereas like rules and policies, it's kind of a little bit more nitty-gritty.
Okay.
Oftentimes what I've seen a rule hack
So I'm
route
just going to skip forward a
create
little.
a difficult might be ignored.
So basically, this was the type of research was like much more me just prompting some words and listening. So it was a lot more listening than it was me talking, which usually in good UX research, that is the idea. We're hearing the user, not ourselves. But you'll see in a second here, I think I'm going to ask just like some clarifying, like dig deeper questions.
This statement sounds kind of, does this sound accurate to you based on what you just said?
So I'm repeating back what I heard.
You can create these rules, quote unquote, that will sort of create like a set of like check marks or benchmarks that if an event hits any of those, then that's when some sort of an alert, or as you said, like a page might go out.
Yep.
Okay.
And the page going out, that
So definitely kind of like a hearing what the user has to say, digging deeper, confirming that I understood what they were getting at, because I was really interested in that nesting piece. Like I'd seen from some of our competitors, I was unsure if event was in rule and policy, are those like completely the same across like Red Hat versus Azure versus AWS? Like I wanted to know like is this a very hard and fast these are their definitions, or is it a little murky, or are any of these things nested? Is rule like a little baby of the policy? Like I wanted to understand how the user sort of like places these things. Like are they, you know, child parent relationships? Are they sibling type relationships? Um, is this the? I think this is a second one, just with a little bit more stuff.
Okay. So this next one. So this next section here, I'm going to show
Yep,
you
okay.
a couple of screens. And I kind of want to understand between, some of them will be 2 words, some of them will be 3 words, kind of what each of these phrases mean to you. And are they synonyms? Are they opposites? Are they different? So for starters, the phrases notification and alert. What do these 2 mean to you, and do they have any similarities and differences?
So something worth noting here, this was kind of under the covers, sort of like a us versus our competitors. So I didn't tell the customer this because I didn't want to influence them. But in our current experience, we use the term notification. But most of our competitors use the term alert. And I was really curious, are these synonymous to the user? And I learned pretty quickly that there is some juicy info to come out of that. Oh my god, did I? Sorry. Are we like here? Okay, it looks like it's taking its sweet time, so I'll just kind of verbally tell you what the user said. There was essentially this perspective that, and this was across the board, this user and the other one-to-one user and the other focus group, that there was this widespread sort of idea that even though they, to most of us sound pretty synonymous, that an alert holds a sense of urgency that a notification does not. So a couple people went as far as to say, and this was verbatim quote from not that customer, but a different one, who said, "Notifications are spam to me." And I was like, okay, cool. So if we're calling that entire service notifications, and you're like, no, I don't care, then that would maybe explain why you are not using it. Because you're like, that's a thing I don't care about. And usually we do things that we care about. So that is where that terminology piece came really into play. Is like, it wasn't that we were using a wrong term. It was we were using one that was not matching the expectation of what they expected. Okay, that was like so much nausea, traveling, navigation on my slides. Sorry. Okay, so kind of what did we see here, and what were the benefits that came from this? So we talked a little bit about how the prep work side of things was kind of my catalyst for doing research like this, because I didn't need designs, so I didn't have to do any like quick and dirty mock-ups or anything pixel perfect. So that in and of itself is like a solid month of work that didn't have to happen. It was just slide deck with words, and that's pretty quick. Minimal time investment. I'm pretty sure, once I had an idea of the concepts and the topics that I wanted to test, I think I gave a total of 2 hours of preparation work to make a slide deck, like aside from the competitive analysis piece, but the actual, just for this, it was just putting together a deck, which is now a template, so this could now be done in like 45 minutes, right? Just, if we take off some of those other logistical pieces of the recruiting and those other things, but if you find like that focus group, that was a user group that already meets every other week, so I was just like, hey, can I kidnap some time on that agenda and just steal your people? And they were like, yeah, do it. And then it really provided me insight into the user perceptions, without me planting any sort of like, here's an idea, do you like it? Please say you do type thing. Like, no, it was just, it's words, talk at me. It's a flexible framework, so I used kind of mostly kind of navigational concepts, but you could do this with other things as well. We were able to we did some questions where it was like 3 words, comparing them, some where it was 2. We discussed again, like, is there any, like hierarchy or nesting that happens in these? So that gave us a really good idea of like, if we were to turn this into like a navigational structure, what would be like the top most large and in charge nav item there. And it's really easily repeatable because it's just a slide deck. Remove the words, put them with new ones. Amazing, golden, you're good to go. So something that's good, I think, to point out is, while I found a lot of success with this, it is definitely not the right research all the time. It's good for people a lot of the time, but it's not good for some people all the time. So when to use? When you're at the very beginning of a project, because this is definitely discovery research, right? Like if you're already like months into a project, it is probably not the ideal time to be like, am I even fundamentally thinking about this right? Like, no, in theory, we want to know that early. So it helps build intuition. And I took basically the things that I learned in this study and then kind of let that drive me where I went with the rest of the design. So if you're looking to uncover pain points, really great for that too, because even though I was like throwing out some topics, I learned things from the customers of like, oh, here's the aspect that I find most annoying about configuring alerts. So I'm like, oh, that's a little added bonus, cool. And it's definitely qualitative responses. Really, unless you are a full-time researcher and you have the time, bandwidth, and compensation budget to be doing research all day long, you are not going to get that n equals 32 number of doing like 30 to 40-minute interviews with people. That's just unlikely. I definitely don't have that kind of time. So I did 3 total sessions. Again, one of them was a group session, so I did get more people out of it. I think it totaled about 10 people. So that's obviously not a huge sample size, but it's qualitative. And then when not to use, when you have a proposed design already, if you are like, I am in love with this design, it is pixel perfect, you're going to be like a little hurt on the inside and have trouble kind of peeling yourself away from that concept if you find out months in that your idea sucks and I don't like it. And then if you're trying to verify a proposed solution, again, too late for that too. If you are looking for something that is you need a lot of people in order to make your stakeholders happy, not great for that either. So kind of what came after this, I chose to take those high-level themes that came out of the study, and I did a qualitative survey where I did get 30 to 50. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but it was at least 30. 30 survey responses where I essentially had like high-level theme. Tell me if you agree, disagree, strongly disagree, or neutral. That way I could make sure that the things that I got from the terminology study weren't just like little outlier snippets. I wanted to make sure that they really were like representative of the larger group of people. And I made some mock-ups, started to list some requirements versus nice to haves based on, how many people felt very strongly about this one topic. And then chatted with my stakeholders and we moved on from there. I definitely want to make sure we have some time for questions or thoughts or whatever, or looking at more pictures of my cat. That's an option as well. I mean, I could just have her up here, just for poops and giggles. Just like, who doesn't want to look at that? But yeah, I will be a person who has thoughts. I can't guarantee answers, but I can guarantee thoughts. If there are any questions.
I do have a
Sure.
question. So after the qualitative, one-on-one this your terminologies masses, and then you conduct a survey,
Mm-hmm.
and that leads to like a quantitative kind of result.
Yep.
And what happens next? Do you just drop to a conclusion?
Yeah, so just to repeat the question, it was kind of, so we did this qualitative study where we got the high-level themes, and then we did that survey to sort of verify how, are those themes representative of everyone? So the question was, what kind of came next, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that was kind of taking those list of themes and the ones that were like kind of, most people said like strongly agree. That became like, when I listed out like nice to haves and must-haves for like project requirements, those mostly agreed things became like the hard requirements for the project. So I kind of drew up some proposals for those things based on the level of agreement and ran those by like my stakeholders, like my PMs, my eng leads, my architects, to just see like, does this seem like a good way forward? So it was definitely kind of coming up with project requirements was the next step. And then once I kind of got sign off on that, then it was pretty much kind of diving straight into, I use Figma to do my mock-ups. So I was diving into Figma, starting to look at things, doing a little bit of like information architecture, a little bit of site mapping to show like, hey, here's a proposed navigational structure. What do we think of that? Before I even start designing the things that go on the page, does this mental model, like how do you guys feel about this? Does this break anything we already have?
I see.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and as I think one of your slides also indicates, like basically like you are only doing these terminology mental models at the one-on-ones and these interviews that you're
Yep.
doing. And is there like a benchmark or like a comparison with like normal like other like let's say mock kind of interview versus your terminology techniques? Is there like a comparison?
Sorry, a comparison between.
Like how you sorry, just a lot of things software engineering just
No, you're good.
like benchmarking all the time.
Yeah, I think I didn't so much look at like the benchmarks of things. I more so was really just trying to uncover what are the pain points. And then I think usually it's standard that once we do this type of discovery research, once we have mock-ups and once engineering has started implementing something, it is fairly standard that we'll do some like usability testing down the road. That way we can actually kind of like make a more formal, as you said, like a comparison of let's look at our current experience or like look at data or metrics on the usage of it now. And then once the new version has maybe been like a staging or like a preview environment, see if we see usage start to come up at all. Yeah, of course. What's up, bud?
So it seems like this was a very effective tool, and I would say you have to think like in the future, like going forward, what is another case that you can see
this type of research being effective for?
Yeah, I know one of my coworkers.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yes, sorry. So we did this style of research for looking at like this particular use case was managing alerts, and the question was, what are some other topics or other things that we could apply this method to? Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think as much as I'm frankly sick of hearing about AI, I imagine there could probably be a little bit of looking at that as well. I know I'm working on some projects related to if we have, with a largely technical audience, making sure that we're referencing the right things in our AI stuff. Like, make sure when I say model, I mean model, not agent. Or like, I was given like whatever it is, 9th degree, 10th degree, I don't remember, whatever that term is. Like, I was given hell, essentially, for using model when I should have said agent. And I was like, oh my God, okay, sorry. And so I think hearing from some human beings that aren't people that I work with every day, tell me like, yeah, here's what I think of when I see model. Here's what I think of when I think of agent. I think that is definitely a way that we could go with this, especially given that it's such new territory in the grand scheme of things. People might not have, I think at this point are starting to form biases about what they think about certain terms, but maybe we don't have it super documented yet. So I think that that's one. I also know that exact like rule, event, policy thing. Some of my coworkers on a different team took that research and made use of it because they were working on some sort of redesigns of a policy management service.
We'll take one more question and then.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's more of a comment than a question. I wanted to let you know, Mary, that you inspired us when we were doing some research on the perceived differences between a model registry, a model catalog, and a model, is it model garden? All of those terms are used as repositories for models. And one of the cool things about the technique is that it's so open-ended. You don't give the person a lot. You just give them those terms and you kind of let them go.
Yeah.
And you learn so much more beyond just what they think the difference is between those three things.
Yeah.
So I really like that part of the technique.
Thank you. And now I'm enlightened that a freaking model garden is a term. Just grow your AI flowers with us.